Welcome to Touchline. I'm your host, Anthony Totera, with our second part here with Jason de Vos. And Jason, once again, thanks for taking time out of your busy life to join us here. But it is so important to tap into your mind, the guy that's played locally, nationally, and internationally. Now you're at the grassroots level. You're with the Oakville Soccer Club. And if I'm not mistaken, they are still the biggest in Canada in numbers, or pretty close to it. And this is a huge club, but a valuable club in the province of Ontario. Tell us how many kids are registered in your club.
I think the last count was a little over 12,500 members.
Wow.
It is the biggest club in the country, but quite frankly, that doesn't really matter to me that much. I want our club to be a leader in the game in terms of creating a learning environment for our players. And I think that having come through the system myself as a player, as a youngster growing up in Ontario, I've said many times, the system now is actually worse than it was when I was a kid.
Wow.
And that's really disappointing. And I think there are a lot of very smart soccer people, soccer minds within Ontario and within Canada. And I think we need to try and harness that intelligence about the game to create a structure that does work for player development. And I look at the players that do reach the higher levels of the game, whether it's professional or university level or the national team. And I've often remarked that many times it's not because of the system that they succeed, it's in spite of the system. So, we've got to try and change the way we develop players in Canada and create a much better environment for them to learn the game in. And it's not just players, it's coaches, it's referees. It's about creating a soccer culture, and that starts for me at the grassroots level.
And so what are you doing at Oakville Soccer Club that maybe other clubs need to take a look at, that you're trying to implement and do differently?
The first thing I would say is I wouldn't profess that we've got all the answers. I think that we are one of many clubs out there with ideas on how things should be done, but the most important thing is that we're trying to be as collaborative as possible. So rather than us saying, we've got all the answers and we'll do it our way, we want to work with other clubs and try and share best practices, and try and bring ideas to the table and try and collectively come together to come up with an idea that works in partnership with governing bodies. So it's not about what Oakville thinks is right. It's what the game of soccer in this country and in this province, as an example, will do for the kids, and that is driven by the OSA. The governing body of the game in Canada, in Ontario, is the OSA, who obviously are governed by the CSA. So rather than having that opposition where people are fighting and infighting, we need to work together, collaborative, to try and fix the system that's broken, because everyone agrees that it is broken.
Bravo. Yep.
It's a question that you ask any technical director of any club across the province, and they'll all say the same thing. It's broken, it needs to change, we have to fix it. Now it's a question of let's work together to try and fix it.
How do we do that, Jason? Because you and I both know a lot of people think they have the answer, and they're pulling in many directions. You and I know that there's so many great people in this province of ours from so many different countries, and they want to implement their style of play, whether it's the South American style, the European, the African, you name it. What are you doing with your coaches at Oakville Soccer Club? Are you implementing one style of play that you want your coaches to teach your kids?
We're looking into that. I think the first thing that we did in Oakville was go out and try and actively find the best coaches we possibly can and bring them in, hire them to come and work for the club and lead an age group, so that there's a clear structure in place from a coaching perspective. And then that group of head coaches then work together as a group, as a collective, to try and drive the messages home, because it's a very big education process involved in all of this. What does it take to develop a player? What kind of an environment do we have to create for them? What are the 4 components of player development that you have to look at from a technical, tactical, physical, and mental perspective? How do we put in place best practices to train all of those components? What role does winning play in all of that? Is that the only thing we're worried about, or is that a byproduct of proper player development, which I believe it is? Trying to educate parents and coaches and players all at the same time, it's a massive task, and it's certainly one that's not going to happen overnight. It's not like flicking a switch and everything's going to be the way you want it to be. It's an ongoing process that's going to take years to implement.
Now, you mentioned a whole bunch of things that I had next here on the list. Let's start with parents. You and I both know that parents are so important and vital, as you mentioned in the last segment, your parents. I'll be honest, I'll put myself out there. I have 2 boys, and especially with the first one who's 18 now, I used to be on the sideline instructing and telling him what to do, and not even to listen to the coach. I've learned with the second one to be quiet, staple my mouth shut, and bite my lip till blood comes out, and let the coach do his or her job. And even if they're wrong, too bad. How do we go about telling the parents out there? And I know they mean well, but if little Johnny, little Susie's being yelled at by mom and dad to go closer to the net or take that kick, or what happens to our coaches that are putting in so much time, so much effort to help these kids, then mom and dads are taking over? Is it maybe time, I'm going to say this and maybe people might not like it, but maybe at the younger ages, they stay way, way back from the sidelines and let the coaches do the work?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I've yet to meet a parent that willfully makes a decision to harm their child. And yet, so much of the practices that you hear about on the sidelines of parents, contradicting a coach or yelling from the sidelines to instruct a player, is actually negative towards the development of their children. So it's about educating the parents about what their role is, and they have a crucial role to play. And I tell all the parents in Oakville that, you are the support network for your child, and you can either help facilitate their learning, or you can, chip away at all the good work that we're trying to do here. So it's not about us saying, we've got all the answers and you drop the kids off and stay at the door and we'll take care of it. It's about saying to the parents, look, we're in this together.
Right.
We're working to try and develop your child and teach them life skills through the game of soccer. And that's a phrase that we use a lot of times, because the reality is a very, very small percentage of players will go on to play at the highest level of the game. But the skills that they learn through the game of soccer can apply to everything that they do in life, whether it's their education, it's their career when they graduate from university, everything that they do in life in terms of dedication, work rate, commitment, sacrifice, dealing with adversity. These can all be taught through the game of soccer, whether it's a training session or a game. So it's an education process. And again, it's about trying to get them to understand that this is a long-term process.
Right.
It's not a quick fix. It's not a microwavable solution. It's about putting children in the right environment where they can grow over a long period of time. And that's what LTPD is about.
Well said.
There's a lot of misinformation and miscommunication out there about long-term player development. One is that you're not going to teach kids how to win. You're not going to be competitive. And that's from not understanding what the message is. It's about creating an environment that allows kids to develop on their own time rather than forcing them to develop under your schedule.
And I agree. Sorry to interrupt, Jason. I agree. But now I'm going to defend the parents.
Yeah.
When you get coaches that want to win at all costs, and it's happened to my son and many others out there because maybe their size or maybe they're not aggressive enough at the early ages, are benched and sitting on the bench for 3/4 of the game. How are they supposed to develop and learn? So now I feel for the parents where they're getting upset. They pick up their child and they say, look, this coach isn't giving my child the respect. Let's go to another club. And then the vicious circle continues and continues. How do we go about that? Because I understand the coaches are on the hot seat. They need to win to attract players. I understand that. But what about that parent that's traveling all over, taking time on work to get on time to that game? What do we do?
It's tough. I mean, and I don't think that if you look at Canadian soccer, that there's one thing that is the root of all evil and that has to change everything. I think there's a number of different components that we have to try and fix. One of them, in my opinion, is the structure. So promotion and relegation. From a very young age, promotion and relegation forces coaches to select players who can win at the age of 8, 9, 10.
Well said.
And the easiest way to do that is to select the children who are the most physically advanced. So you don't try and play out of the back. You don't try and pass the ball. You rely on your physical advantage to get results. That equals success at that level, but that doesn't really teach those kids how to play the game.
Well said.
So that I believe has to change. If we can change that competitive environment, not taking away winning and losing, not taking away competing, because kids still want to win, they still want to play, they still want to compete. But by not saying the only ones who are going to get an opportunity to develop are the ones that win, that everyone's going to get that opportunity, I think we're going to start to change that mindset.
Right.
But it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
It's not like flicking a switch. It's going to take time, and there's going to be a few bumps along the way. But if we stay the course and we keep that compass pointed in the right direction, I think over a period of time we will see better results.
Well said. And that's where I agree with the parents in many aspects. And it's not that I'm against the coaches, Jason, you and I aren't, but I understand their point of view as well. Look, I've got a basement full of trophies. Competition trophies, championship trophies, ribbons, you name it. I'd rather have in my basement, now I have an 18-year-old playing college soccer, but I'd rather have in my basement something like a poster of a Jason de Vos who played for Team Canada or in Europe. And Jason de Vos got that because he developed. Coaches and parents believed in him, not because they won all these trophies at an early age. Let's talk about long-term player development. This is where I think it's so important to get that message out. I'm not here to be an infomercial for the OSA, neither are you. But I think you and I are both on the same wavelength. It's development and teaching the child right.
Yeah. You know, you can use all kinds of different analogies. You know, I refer to school a lot of the times as well. And, you know, the one thing that I say to parents, you know, if your child doesn't make the A team, you know, in this year, you equate that to school. If they don't get an A in school and they get a B, what is your reaction as a parent? You don't pull them out of school and take them to another school that promises you an A.
Good analogy.
You sit down and you work with your child and say, these are the things you need to work on to become an A student. So it's no different in soccer. If you're not playing at the most competitive level right now, it's not because you can't get there. It's because right now you're just not at that level. You have to work to get to that level. So the justification for LTPD is to try and create that learning environment where children can learn the fundamental skills they need to be successful in the game over a long period of time. Not in the short term, because the short term, while it might be what many people judge their success on, is whether they win a trophy at the end of the year, over the long term, for me, is the most important thing. Can we first and foremost make those children fall in love with the game, that they want to play soccer every day of their life? And then over the long term, if we can teach them the core skills, ball control, comfort on the ball with both feet, passing, receiving, left foot, right foot, just that general technical proficiency that we seem to lack in this country. And I'll be the first to hold my hand up and say that I didn't really learn that stuff at a high level until I went to Europe when I was 22, and I played catch-up for the remainder of my career because I never really acquired those skills when I was a youngster. So if we can do a better job of teaching kids those skills at a young age, how much better do you think they're going to be when they're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old?
You're bang on, and that's, I think, where the United States of America, the USA, our brothers to the south, are doing a much better job than we have in the last 20 to 25 years, Jason. Now, Jason, we ask our coaches to be better and send them to coaching conferences. We ask our players to get better, to get extra training, whether at academies, at clubs, you name it. We ask ourselves in this industry that I'm in to get better. Is it not also important that we ask the referees out there to get better? Look, I'm the biggest supporter of referees. There's not enough out there. It's a shameless job. They get yelled at, screamed. They don't do it for the money. I understand that. But I have been to so many games in the last 15 years where I can count on one hand the quality of refereeing games I saw with my own two eyes at the kids' level. Is it not time that we're pushing for the kids and the coaches to get better? I think we need to see the referees get better. Many a time, and I've had referees on, Jason, I see referees that are not physically in shape, that can't even run on a hot, humid day a full 90 minutes. Why are they out there?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I have to say that being a referee is a thankless job.
Yep.
I mean, I certainly sympathize with them because they're there because they love the game and they want to play a role in facilitating the game for children. Again, you know, there are multiple components to developing better referees, as there are for developing better players and developing better coaches. One of them, again, I think, is the competition structure. When, you know, a team of 8 or 9-year-old kids are playing in a system that only the winner gets rewarded, there's immense pressure on those referees. And sometimes you're getting children as young as 13, 14, 15 years old who are new to refereeing, thrown into an environment where adults on the sideline are hurling verbal abuse at them because they made a mistake.
That's not right.
And it's not right, and it needs to change. But that's not going to change unless the whole system that they're operating in changes. So this is something that we're working towards. You know, in our district, in Peel-Halton, we've implemented a development league, the Peel-Halton Development League, from under 8 to under 11, which removes promotion and relegation. There's voluntary placement of teams based on the level of ability that they have to try and find the right competitive environment. Because what we want is we want games to be competitive. We want them to be close.
Correct.
5-4, 4-3. We don't want 10-0 because no one learns in a game that's 10-0.
Correct.
The team that wins doesn't get challenged. The team that loses just gets demoralized. So trying to find that right competitive level for each player and then putting the referees in, knowing that the result of the game is irrelevant. It's the experience of the game that's important. That will allow us to develop those referees and give them a gradual introduction and hopefully retain more referees. We lose 50% of the referees in soccer every year. because the primary reason being verbal abuse from coaches and parents, because it's win-win-win. It's all we focus on.
And you and
It
I
has
both
to
know,
change.
yeah, you and I both know that's unacceptable. There should be no verbal abuse. There should be no yelling back at the referee at any situation whatsoever. I understand that, but I think too many times we use the back door and we say there's not enough referees, that they're not registering enough. Look, we need good quality referees. If that means we have to use the good quality referees more and more and more, I'd rather have that than a referee that isn't at the level physically and mentally to ref a game.
Yeah, there has to be a mentoring program in there as well for referees, and you know, it's no different than being a coach. You know, you don't get a license and then go off and all of a sudden become a great coach overnight. It's a period of time where you learn and you gain experience, and you work with other coaches who are more knowledgeable than you are, who have more experience than you do, who maybe you bounce ideas off of. They give you suggestions on, maybe you want to try this with your team, maybe you want to use this in training, this is not working, think about it this way. It's no different from being a referee. When you have an experienced referee mentor on the sidelines watching the game and assessing the young referee, giving them feedback, giving them suggestions on how they can improve and get better, that's only going to help their education, because you know, they're not born, you know, overnight. They don't happen. You don't just, you know, go out to a superstore and buy a bunch of great referees.
Yep.
You know, you have to develop them yourself over a period of time. So I think clubs need to invest in that. The OSA needs to invest in that as well. You know, and the more time and effort we put into developing referees, the better they're going to become.
Very good. A couple things, and then we'll close it out. Your club again. Let's talk about some of the great players that have come out of your club. I know a few of them, but let the viewers out there know. But also, there's a ton that have gone on to get scholarships, not just the stars that have represented their country. Let the viewers know who some of them are.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't take any credit for it myself, but Cara Lang played in Oakville and was just inducted into the Oakville Sports Hall of Fame.
Congratulations to her.
Wonderful for Cara. She's a tremendous ambassador for the game and for the club. Diana Matheson played in Oakville as well, another proud alumni. So she's doing very, very well. Hope to see her back from injury this year and competing again with the women's national team. Junior Hoylett, who plays in England in the Premier League with Blackburn, spent some time in Oakville. There's plenty of players that have come through the system, have touched the system, and been a part of the club, and has a wonderful history. It's 40-year anniversary this year, which is a big occasion for the club. So I'm very excited, planning some events in terms of a celebrity game later on in the summer, which we're looking forward to. You know, you know, it's just a great environment to be in. You know, when I joined the club, the first thing I said was I really want to try and you know, have that family feel that I had at Ipswich. You know, when I was playing with Ipswich Town, where everyone worked together and everyone was in it together to try and create that environment where people wanted to come and be a part of the club, and we're certainly starting to get there. I'm really pleased with how it's gone, although you know, we're not where I want us to be. We've still got a long way to go. I think we're moving in the right direction.
But I love what you said. It's a family atmosphere. You want to make it like that. Jason, is the city of Oakville helping out as much as they can?
Town of Oakville.
The town of Oakville. I'm sorry, the town of Oakville. Big mistake. Town of Oakville. Are they helping out enough, Jason? Because your club has numbers. Your club has people that are going out there voting for these people on city council. I have seen many times up your way. They're not the best of fields out there, and I thought when I'm up Oakville way, there's got to be some real beautiful fields. There's some good ones, but you would think a club like yours would command a lot of the ears of the council people out there. Are they respecting and listening to you?
Absolutely. You know, I think the relationship that the club has with the town is phenomenal. You know, the town have been partners of ours in many respects, and we're very, very fortunate that that's the case, because you know, we have a good relationship with them. We can go to them with our concerns. We have a beautiful indoor facility that we use and we manage and run, which allows me to give our kids an environment that maybe they don't have anywhere else. We've just installed a big smart board in the community room where our children can come in now and have a classroom session. We can watch video footage, we can do a tactical analysis, and we can really make it a learning environment. You know, in Pine Glen, we've got 4 beautiful fields there that the town maintains and they look after. So we're very fortunate that we have that relationship. And
so it's a good relationship.
It's very good. It's very
There's
good.
no problems, and they're helping out in many ways, because we hear from a lot of other clubs that they have problems with the city, that the fields aren't maintained, they pay a lot of fees, that when they put in calls, they're hardly returned. So it's great to hear that the town of Oakville is listening to the Oakville Soccer Club and people like yourself. That's important.
Yeah, it's very important. You know, I think one of the challenges we have in our country is climate. You know, our outdoor season realistically is only 5 months long, so we need more indoor facilities where kids can train on a 12-month basis, you know, a periodized 12-month training program to continue that development, you know, to give them the access to training and coaching where they can develop those fundamental skills. So there are all kinds of challenges. Last year was a great example. We had a very, very wet spring.
Yes.
You know, and the month of May was literally a washout for us. So there are challenges that we have to overcome, but I believe that working together with your municipality as opposed to, you know, fighting against them is the way forward for most clubs, and I'd certainly encourage all clubs out there to try and develop those relationships.
I agree, but you are a taxpayer as many others out there, and they need to listen to the taxpayer because their kids are out there getting physically fit, the fields need to be maintained, and it's great to hear that the town of Oakville has got a great relationship with your club. The last question is simply this. There's strong indications out there, Jason, that a new pro league is coming to Ontario. I got to be honest, I'm excited. I hope this happens sooner than later. A lot of clubs are interested in joining this new pro league. Is Oakville? And if not, tell us why not. And do you believe in what this new pro league will be about?
Philosophically, I believe that we do have to have a senior league where our top senior players can play in. The issue that I have and that Oakville has is that it has to be sustainable. It can't be structured in such a way where the business plan relies on significant losses year after year after year.
There, I'll agree with you.
And that is an issue that I need to see in writing. I need to see a sound business plan that makes sense. And unfortunately, it's been very difficult to come across that. Because internally we've you know done our own estimations of what we think it would cost to run a league of that nature, and it's a significant amount of money. And that's a challenge for me because I want to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable. I don't want a quick fix that lasts for a year or 2 years and then falls apart. I want something that's going to be there for the long-term benefit of the game. I believe that there are solutions for that, but I also believe that we need to fix the lowest levels first so we get it right 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, work our way up, and eventually we'll be in a position where we can offer kids a proper development pathway from cradle to grave, so to speak, where they start out as a youngster and they know the pathway to get to the highest levels. And there are offshoots along the way. If a player is extremely talented, they can go into a professional academy, they can go off on a university scholarship, they can play professionally overseas perhaps. So if we can create a clear development pathway like there are in other sports like hockey, then I believe that's going to serve the interests of the players.
But wouldn't it be also great, Jason, sorry to interrupt, if that boy at Oakville Soccer Club is 16, maybe 17, and now sees that the Oakville Soccer Club is playing in the new pro league in Ontario, can look forward to maybe one day representing his club in the town of Oakville instead of having to go overseas or having to play, you know, maybe in a Division 2 or 3 league in the United States. I think, my personal opinion, I think it's important that a new league, you know, steps up to the plate and gives these opportunities to these clubs and these youngsters.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I do think that there is definite value in having a senior team for a young player to aspire to play for. But, you know, again, to use an analogy, you don't put the shingles on the roof before the foundation is built. You know, you need to build the house first.
Correct.
Before you put the top. And a top-down method, I don't think will work. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
You know,
you're concerned about finances.
Well, I'm concerned about finance. I'm also concerned about player development. Starting a pro league from scratch doesn't mean we have the players to populate that league. You know, the one thing that I don't think we're doing a good enough job of in our country as a whole is developing players who are technically proficient, because the system's not allowing us to spend the time we need to on a development level to be able to give them those skills and let them learn those skills. Everything's about winning. It's all about win, 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 win. Promotion, relegation is really hurting us. We have to change that mentality. Over the course of time, if we develop those players over a 5-10 year period, absolutely we need to have a top-level league to be able for those players to aspire to.
The last point is, it'll be this, and I'll talk a little bit about the finances. And Jason, you don't have to comment if you don't want on this, but I know for a fact that there's many clubs in Ontario that are sitting on some nice, big, fat, juicy bank accounts in there. And to me, it would be so important and vital that they could invest in, you want to call it the senior men's team, I like to call it a pro team in Ontario, to give back and invest. And yes, I agree with you that I wouldn't like to see losses after losses after losses. No, that doesn't make sense. But I would love to see one day my son who's playing at the Vaughan Soccer Club maybe say, hey, I want to play for Vaughan or for Oakville or for whatever club, insert whatever club you want. So I think that is so vital and important. I mean, how big do you have to wait till that bank account is until you spend it and give back?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for other clubs. I can speak for our own. and the notion that we're sitting on a pile of money is not accurate. It's a non-profit organization, and we have a responsibility to run the organization in a way that's financially prudent, without jeopardizing the future of the club. So, we try and cost all of our programs as close to neutral as we possibly can. Some programs run a structured deficit, others run a slight surplus, but we try and balance that as much as we possibly can, because we try and provide the best service possible for the least amount of money for our members. The notion of starting a professional league, if it's going to be professional, is going to cost a significant amount of money. There needs to be a way to generate revenue to offset that. Now, the business models that I've looked at, the numbers that I've seen, don't add up. They don't make sense. And they're not sustainable. They will require significant amounts of money year on year just to be active. Now, that's not a sound business plan. It's not a sound business practice. And I, for one, won't jeopardize the future of our club to be able to do that. So I can't speak for other clubs. As I said, there may very well be clubs out there that are sitting with millions of dollars in the bank. We're not one of them. And we're very, very fortunate to have the relationship that we have with the town of Oakville and our members. And our obligation is to try and deliver the best possible product and the best environment for them to learn the game and love the game.
Well, my pleasure having you here, Jason de Vos. I know that your heart is in the right place, and keep up the great work. And it's so important, I didn't bring this up, to get more ex-players like yourself involved at the grassroots level. We see Bobby Arushi helping out in many ways. We see so many ex-players getting involved, and that's what is so important, to give back to the game what you got out of it. And it's people like you, I always say this, that it is so great to have around the game of soccer. Good luck with the Oakville Soccer Club, and good luck to our Team Canada. It would be so great to see them in 2014 Brazil. Jason, thanks for joining us on Touchline, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on a special Touchline with Jason de Vos.